So Erasmus really gave a lot of opening to the young generation, to students who traveled around, as in other countries, you know it. But I want to stress it because I believe that Erasmus is a very good project in order to create a European area of European society, not only labor market, but a society. With all these people traveling around, Greek young people had the chance to travel and know other civilization, and this was very, very important for the Greek situation as well, because we were a little bit isolated also in terms of geographical isolation. We were always separated from the main European Union that they are the 6 or 7 or other countries. And the last one I have to say about the refugees, it was also very important because when Greece did not have any culture, any opening to people who come from to migrants in general. We were never a colonial country, so we didn't really know, didn't have accepted people from other countries in our country. And the refugees, all the question of 2015, they came through Greece, about 2 million people on their way to other countries. So the European Union, I think, although the refugee policy has a lot of problems, but I don't talk about problems now, I only acknowledge the importance of not only the funding by the EU in order to settle these people, so many people, but also it was let's say an obligation for Greece to invite, to accept, to receive all these people, and this was really according the EU principles of protection of refugees and protection of their human rights. So in all these three very important policy areas that you deal in your project, I think EU has been a big player. A big player a very positive player for Greece. Although now we know that the European Union and also the elections of last days, the European elections showed that we have a move towards more conservative and more right-wing politics. I am optimist, and I think I strongly believe that the institutional framework that is already set in the European Union to protect these three, let's say, issues that we deal with today will remain, will resist, I hope, and I am an optimist on that really what it has been done till now will not disappear in one day. This is not possible, but it will remain, it will resist to the ideas of the extreme right-wing politics and so on, and that we will go on as Europe to be inclusive, social, oriented to social policy, oriented to equality, to diversity, to all these principles and values of the European Union that we serve, and also we are, let's say, supported to implement also in our countries. So I am an optimist. This was I wanted to give you as an idea that EU and the future, as is the title of the conference today, will be positive, and I trust that there are good frameworks set up to resist to all the backlash that can be faced due to the changes in politics. This was what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope you have a nice meeting today.
Thank you very much. I think everyone understood that you are pro-EU and really optimistic, and it's good to hear all these things from people who work in the public sector in EU level. So it was great to have you here. I will give the floor and try to have Fotini, who will be the coordinator. My role was kind of emergency one. So Fotini. So Fotini is one of the active members of the Network for Children's Rights. She's only 15 years old, but she has participated in journalism classes, in theatrical plays, coordinated debates with EU candidates for mayors. So today will be our host. So Fotini, from now on, the floor is yours.
Muted, I think.
You are muted. So, okay. No? 4 years after COVID, we are still facing difficulties in all these online meetings, webinars.
I think now we're okay. Hello, everyone. I would also like to welcome you and thank you for attending the conference. We had some technical difficulties, but it's fine now. And we can continue on to... Okay, yes. I would like to welcome Miss Maria del Mar Bances del Rey. I hope I did it right. I said it right. Assistant Representative for Children Protection in UNHCR Greece. It is important to hear from you as your organization defends the rights of refugees all over the world.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure talking to you today. I think you can hear me well, but I don't see myself either. So I wonder whether you would also allow me to get the camera.
Can you try to turn off your camera because you're co-host?
Yes, yes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure being here. I would like to also to greet Mrs. Stratigaki. I hope I'm saying that. I'm just new in the country as the new Assistant Representative for Protection for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Greece. So this is my second month in the country. So I haven't had the chance yet to meet the Vice Mayor of Athens. So I'll be very hoping to get an opportunity very soon. And of course, my greetings for the organizers, for the Network for Children's Rights, of course, for all the youth which are listening to us online, as well as all the distinguished participants and delegates. I just wanted to perhaps give you I'm also a true believer of the EU. I'm also was an Erasmus student in my very youth years. So I cannot more agree with Mrs. Stratigaki on the importance of being within the EU context and how much opportunities the EU framework has been given to the youth. And of course, the title that is today the aim of the conference, Equality, Youth and Refugees, is extremely interlinked. And it's extremely a priority for UNHCR. As you know, UNHCR deals with the specific aspect of global mobility, meaning the forced movements of persons who are actually forced to flee from war, persecution, human rights violations, violence, or events which are seriously disturbing public order. As you know, today we have actually released the Global Trends Report, and I wanted to give you a few figures of where we are in terms of the spectrum of the displaced population in the country, which includes youth, unfortunately. And as you know, we have at the moment, as of May 2024, more than 120 million persons who have been forcibly displaced in the world. This is actually the 12th consecutive year in which we have seen the increase of forcibly displacement in the world. And of course, an 8% increase since last year, which means 1 out of 5 persons in the world has been displaced. We really, unfortunately, expect 120 million persons being displaced by the end of the year, out of which 40% of those are children. meaning 30% of the entire population are children, but 40% are actually within the forcibly displaced population. That is, as you know as well, the vast majority of refugees are really within neighboring countries, seeking refuge in neighboring countries. And 75% of the refugees, including youth and children, are residing in low-income countries. So just to give you an example, on Greece, which I'm sure that Mrs. Stratigaki is very familiar with, around 106,000 refugees and asylum seekers in the country, out of which 27,000 are children, which are from Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and other countries, refugee-producing countries, of which 45% are girls and 55% are boys, of which 2,000 plus are unaccompanied and separated children, and as well 1,400 are actually over 16 years old, which is really the fragment of the population which are talking about today when it comes to youth. So what is really meaning for us in terms of, Angeliki had actually mentioned that, refugees, displacement, what is it? Imagine growing up is very tough. The teenagers are very tough. I think we have suffered those as well. But we have suffered those in a privileged environment, which is nothing to do with refugees. And youth are suffering, which are displaced from their homes, from their families, some of them unaccompanied. But imagine growing as a refugee in these critical years in which you're shaping your own future, you're shaping your own personalities, your life. So we actually, what are the risks? I think Maria mentioned that some of them as well, is look about sexual and gender-based violence, forced recruitment, exploitation, detention, xenophobia, harassment, discrimination, just to name a few. So imagine how they have lost their skills, they have lost the family, maybe they're confident on the social skills, the dreams, they have aspirations like any other Jews. So displacement really dramatically affect the well-being, the lives, and the development. But at the same time, nothing is lost. We also know that refugee youth are very dynamic, very resourceful. They possess a lot of potential to create and to change their own communities where they have been hosted and to contribute to those communities. What UNHCR does, we really want to protect the forcibly youth from abuse, exploitation, looking at how they can restart their lives, supporting them, providing skills, development, education, and recreational programs. At the same time, we want to bring the youth, as Angelica was mentioning, to the forefront of these developments, to really influence the politicians, to influence the local policies, to work together with the local institutions that the vice mayor, the local institutions, etc. So I think that is important. The municipalities play a key role also to integrate together with the host communities. UNHCR is supporting them with interventions, with local strategies, advocacy, but also what we call the core actions for refugee youth. Some of you may know about this program. It's the main framework from UNHCR, which is really to empower youth, to develop their capacities, to really promote them from against gender discrimination, violence, etc. And also to build on their resilience and emotional well-being. And what happens in Greece? Just wanted perhaps to focus on that. As the vice mayor had actually said, there's a lot of good practices and legislation have been put in place. She mentioned a few of them. I wanted to mention perhaps the new migration code also provides for children a provision for 10-year residence for former unaccompanied children who completed 10 years of secondary education in Greece, which also benefiting refugee population. We also collaborate, of course, as well with the Secretary General for Gender Equality and Human Rights. And our programs are very much integrated into raise awareness for the youth. It's part of our work. Also to counter intolerance, foster tolerance, fight against extreme influencers and counter prejudice, as well as looking at developing educational programs. Vocational training is essential. I think the inclusion of private sector, companies, education, authorities, psychosocial support services is very key altogether to really provide for inclusive education in the national services, which we do have in Greece, vocational training and employment schemes. As well, as I said, mental health and psychological support is key for the youth, particularly for accompanied refugees aged 15 to 23 and the most vulnerable. We have a program in Greece which is working towards this aim, which is called the Empowerment and Self-Reliance Opportunities for Unaccompanied and Separated Children Reaching Adulthood. And the project is implemented since January 23 with IRC in Athens and in Thessaloniki. It provides language courses, psychological support, joint counseling, vocational training, and navigating them to childhood, to housing, scholarship, and related transition to adulthood. But what is my last remarks, perhaps, for the youth which are listening to us today? Youth is the future. We have said that. It's easy to say it and to go into the details, but I'm speaking to you as a young active citizen. We have at the Global Refugee Forum a huge participation of youth. They have their own programs, they have their own events. They were really the real voices of the Global Refugee Forum, which was held in December 2023. I have the privilege to be there in Geneva and working through, I was in Latin America at the time, and I brought 20 refugees, youth from Latin America in Geneva, walking through them. So I really saw their impediments, the challenges, but the voices were raised. So you are the future, but also I'm speaking to you as active citizens of the world. And also your energy, your optimism, your intelligence and motivation needs to really bring us the ways to influence the policies, the influence the legal frameworks, the institutions, and to change the law, the legislation, and also towards the inclusion into the host communities and to counterbalance discrimination, xenophobia. I think that we all need young leadership, and the event of today is a manifestation of this. Having today the voices of refugees and the young population together with Maria and myself here, you are the ones which I think need to be given the voices, you know. But our duty as UNHCR stands with refugees to stop this anti-rhetoric or anti-refugee rhetoric and help refugee youth as yourselves in education, vocational training, labor opportunities for those who reach the age of working, as well as to integrate yourself together with the host communities and to the local authorities. And I think I will leave it here. I think it's important to hear the voices of all of you today in the 3 round tables, and together with the local authorities, the government of Greece, our office in Greece continue to be available to continue supporting this aim and working together with the youth and the displaced youth in Greece. Thank you very much for listening to me today, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Banses. Today we also have with us the conference Mrs. Vangelia Georgitsi from European Commission, representing office in Greece, who would like to make a short statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to this conference. My name is Evangelia Georgitsi, and I am the head of communication in the representation of the European Commission in Greece. In this quality, I would like to congratulate you for the conference, but also for the whole project. It is extremely useful for us as well at the EU level, at the policy level, to have the insight and the views of people on the ground. I was really impressed by the fact that you managed to bring together a consortium of partners from 7 EU member states. This is precisely what we need and how we need to go forward from there. I'm also extremely pleased to be here because before joining the European Commission representation, I was working for DG Home in Greece, and I had worked in various capacities. I was in charge of asylum, then I was in charge of reception on the islands, in the mainland, and finally border protection and returns. So I fully understand what it is about and what are the challenges and the things. So in this capacity, this more personal capacity, I would like to congratulate you as well. The topic is extremely important. It remains topical because even if we are almost 10 years away from the big crisis of 2015, the problem of displacement and refugee population is not resolved. It's here to stay. It is our international obligation. Beyond all, it is our international obligation, both at the EU and at the national level, to make sure that people who deserve protection, they get the protection they need. They get what the material conditions of reception. They have the request for asylum properly examined. And once this is done, they have the means at their disposal to integrate the new place of their new living place properly. I don't want to be long. I just wanted to underline that the European Union has supported this effort since 2015 in many ways. First of all, through a very generous funding, but also in operational capacity. You should know that still today, we have 3 EU, beyond the team of DG Home, who is always here on the ground to support as they can. We have 3 agencies, 3 EU agencies with huge deployments in Greece. This is the European Union Agency for Asylum, the former EASO, EUAA now, which has the biggest deployment in Greece from all member states. We have, of course, Frontex, who is helping on the islands on first reception, and Europol as well. And of course, as I said, there is the team of DG Home who are doing more the monitoring and assess the situation on the ground, also to give proper advice to our headquarters on how we should take it for there. What I keep from this period, from this 4-year period in DG Home, is that the issue of refugees and young people is an issue that is very complex and requires a collaboration at all levels. So there is no way to advance if we don't have collaboration at all levels. And what are these levels? Of course, the EU level. It is international obligation, as I said, but at the same time, it is part of the acquis. It has become an EU obligation, but also collaboration with international organizations, and in particular with UN agencies. During the first period, at least, you know that the European Commission was working hand in hand with UNHCR, and we still do, of course, and the IOM, the International Office for Migration, but also, of course, the national level, both the central, the ministries, and the local level. I was very glad to hear the representative, the vice mayor from the city of Athens. You know, the city of Athens has and still has had and still has a lot of programs for the integration of refugees in urban environments, if I may say. UNHCR has had several projects in the different camps in Greece, and I can personally attest, in particular with young people, for a variety of issues, from language training to vocational training to professional skills, but also music and recreational activities, whatever would need a young person to be able to thrive in this life, and of course the civil society. Last but not least, this is not something we can do alone. This is not something that can go from with the top down. This is why I insist it is a complicated issue that requires a very coordinated effort from all sides. I will stop here. All that to say that what you are doing here is extremely useful for us as well. It provides very precious insights. And if you allow me, I would like to rephrase a bit your title. It's not EU and the future, it's rather you are the future. So this is what we wait for you to give us the insight of the future we wish. And I think we are all committed to make it happen to the best of our capacities. Thank you again. And I wish you a very fruitful discussion and panels.
Mr. Georgitsi, thank you for joining us today. So now we give the floor to the youth and the experts, starting with Andreas. Andreas, nice to have you here, and welcome in your guests too.
Thank you so much, Fotini. Thank you so much, Alexia, and the three esteemed speakers that went before us. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I would like to personally welcome you as well. Today's panel discussion will be about equality in the youth and how does the youth have a role to play. My name is Andreas Patsaridis. I represent the organization Citizens in Power, who is one of the implementing partners of the project. I think today this panel discussion is particularly important in the context how youth, we usually hear that it has a role to play, but how can we actually do that? I know that we went a little bit over in time, and I don't want Alexia to be mad at me. She has been very adamant that I only get 35 minutes. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our distinguished panelists today. With us, we have Dr. Yolanda Vasile, who is an experienced researcher and an instructional designer in social sciences, focusing on gender mainstreaming. She initiates and implements programs on education, human rights, women's rights, racial discrimination, and the marginalization of social groups. With us also, we have Yavor Konov, who is the chair of Ivor Foundation, the only NGO in Bulgaria with 100% focus on gay men's health. Yavor is passionate about improvement of gay men's health rights and overall well-being in Bulgaria. And last but definitely not least, we have today Elia Yanoglu, who is a university graduate with a law degree from University of Cyprus. She has participated in several notable conferences and model United Nations events and moot court competitions. She's a member of the 6th House of New Representatives. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being able to join us. So with the first question, I would like just to set the context, because we tried to put the broader concept of equality and what does it mean. So for the first question, we often hear the phrase to end gender stereotypes. Or to end any kind of stereotypes. But what do we mean exactly by ending said stereotype? How do we envision that happening? And in that context, what do we mean by EU doing something to focus on that specific issue? Can you elaborate a bit on how EU is able to effectively address and eliminate as much as possible these stereotypes? Yolanda, can we start with you, please?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Andreas. Thank you to the organizers. I'm very glad to be here in the company of such esteemed guests and colleagues. I think it's an excellent question, but a very broad one, of course. And as always, it's very important to set the scene, no? Because we often use the same words, but not with the same understanding of the concepts that we are using. So yeah, but I think it's important to establish what we understand by gender stereotypes. And I think the first thing that comes in mind is gender imbalances or gender gaps that are often caused by structural inequalities and discriminatory practices in social or social norms in political, social, economical areas. So therefore, ending gender stereotypes, it's a tough task, no? And it sounds quite abstract, but should translate in practice in eliminating these preconceived notions and the rigid roles assigned to individuals based on their gender, of course. of course, the EU focuses and should further focus on several areas that are aligned most of the time with the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development. No, we all know about the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And here we can speak about a number of areas that, of course, can be improved, such as gender equality through more inclusive legislation, workplace equality, pay inequality, how especially women and girls are affected by the challenges that come with climate change, of course, with energy transition, the access to digital education and to digital how women are affected through digitalization at large. But since we had the EU elections, I would open the question. I would actually be more specific and open up a provocation also for my colleagues and emphasize the importance of supporting women in leadership positions across the political, social, and economical spheres. And I would leave it here and asking my colleagues to pick up and maybe develop further on these topics. And I'm happy to answer to any questions that might arise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what I pick up, the most important thing is that it's a constant progress. It's not one thing that has one state and that's it. Constantly developing, yeah. And it needs support from outside.
It's a living organism,
yes.
Which we are all part of and contributing to, hopefully. Yeah.
Everyone, I'm assuming here, is supporting, is in favor of that goal. Ellie, would you like to add?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor. So I totally agree with my co-panelist, Yolanda. And as she has mentioned, it's a constant process, trying to end these gender stereotypes. I think that they are evident in almost every sector of everyday life. The economic one, the political one, as Yolanda has mentioned. And I think that even though the pre-existing framework of the European Union through the directives, and I will set as an example the work-life balance directive and the gender equality ones, I don't think that in a national level, they're so effective as they should be. For example, we have the maternity leave, the most common example. And whereas there's no paternity leave or there's like little paternity leave, and it falls under the discretionary power of each member state. So this leads to further problems, further broadening the gender gap, the gender pay gap more specifically, leading to employers not employing women just because of the maternity leave and like preferring men. So I think that this pre-existing framework and in combination with the equality strategy of the EU Commission of 2020 to 2025, which actually tackles, I would say, these inequality problems and challenges, the gender pay gap, is actually a first step to put an end to or eliminate these gender stereotypes, and also the role of the youth via education, educating ourselves first, contributing to efforts of eliminating these gaps and creating campaigns, taking initiatives, raising awareness. I think, yeah, it will contribute to this process. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Something I would like to point, which I really like, is that it's about us, not perpetuating the same stereotypes that we have. We have some notions and assigned gender roles, and without inadvertently, if you believe something or you take something as factual, you just inadvertently perpetuate that notion. Yavor, would you like to add on that?
Well, I've actually prepared a short presentation for you guys. If you allow me to share my screen. Do you see it?
Yes. Just to be a bit considerate of time, because we are very...
Absolutely, it's quite short.
Yeah.
So
okay, great.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Yavor Konov, and I'm the chair of the IBRA Foundation. Thanks to the Hesed Foundation for this invitation to be part of this panel. So we do focus on gay men's health entirely, and the hot topics of the day that I chose based on the questions that were given to me are, as already discussed, gender stereotypes, the progress of LGBTQI plus issues in the EU. I'm going to focus on same-sex marriage, marriage equality, and finally, how united are we actually? So, what do we mean by gender stereotypes? According to the European Institute for Gender Equality, that's preconceived ideas basically for, females and males and what their roles in society should be. And then, a very classic question that we can ask to break it down into simpler terms is, for instance, does color have a gender? Is pink assigned to a certain color? Is blue assigned to a certain color? And, when I was a little boy, yellow was my favorite color. So I don't fall into the binary, obviously. And, the same can be said about clothes and toys and sports, accessories like makeup, and, insert anything of your preference that's, genderized in a way in society. So stereotypes are harmful, and applying the gender limited mindset is harmful. For instance, a man should not wear skirts. A woman should not play football, and what was it? A woman must marry and give birth to at least 2.3 children to keep the EU alive. Was that it? So that's funny. So in the context of gay men, for instance, what we do, these stereotypes, are fodder for bullying at school. And I'm not going to mention anything new, but I guess for the younger audience right now, it's important to say these things. Stereotypes and bullying in the context of gay men are, for instance, you're not a man enough because you don't play soccer, or you're feminine because you're wearing nail polish, or you're an abomination because your homosexuality is a sickness. Moving on to marriage equality, that's the current state of Europe, not only the EU, but Europe. Source of Wikipedia. So as of February this year, 21 European countries legally perform and recognize same-sex marriage. Congratulations to Greece, by the way. That's great. For us in Bulgaria, finally a neighbor that recognizes same-sex marriage. And why should we be positive? Because when we look back to 2017, the same map, when I got interested in the whole subject of same-sex marriage, at least 8 countries with the X's that you see on the map were not in dark blue. So Finland, Germany, Estonia, Slovenia, Austria, Switzerland, Northern Ireland were not, yet dark blue. Were not in recognizing same-sex marriage in 2017, early 2017. So progress has undoubtedly been made. And on the matter of what EU law, or more broadly speaking, what European law we could use to move forward, I'm going to talk about Lily and Dari's marriage. They got married in the UK in 2017. Of course, their marriage was rejected by Bulgarian law. However, they took it to the European Court of Human Rights, and last year, the European Court of Human Rights, recognized them as a family and stipulated that, not only Bulgaria, but all Council of Europe states must legally start recognizing same-sex marriage. So, these are great tools that we have at our disposal to move forward in terms of marriage equality or any kind of equality. And finally, you know, since it's Pride Month, are we united in diversity? In the Bulgarian case, there's no, you know, no same-sex marriage, no marriage equality. There's plenty of Pride events everywhere, of course. You're not going to be able to attend all of them. But you know, the question is, should diversity only be happening in June, or you know, similarly to HIV, you know, it doesn't happen only on December 1st. It's every day. You know, I'm raising questions in the context of, are corporations lobbing the pride flag only in June? Do they care the following 11 months? And then, are the different members of the LGBTQ plus community truly united? To what extent? For instance, to what extent are lesbian women interested in the health rights of gay men? To what extent gay men are interested in the rights of intersex people, and so on and so forth. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was truly great. We will get back to you, even though you have answered some of the following questions. It's great when the panelist is more organized and more prepared than the moderator of the discussion, but that only makes for a great discussion. Ellie, would you like to follow on that? I think Yavor touched a little bit on it, but could you give us a little bit more context on the EU legislative in terms of LGBTQI plus rights?
Mm-hmm. Actually, yes. I think that Yavor like set the floor pretty smoothly for us to continue the conversation. As he mentioned, and it's very important, that most of the EU member states have not like yet recognized marriage between a man and a man, or a woman or a woman and a woman. So queer marriage, and they still consider it as being illegal. Whereas in other countries, such as here in Cyprus, they're considered as civil unions, and they're only allowed to do that. So it's kind of problematic, if I may add. So yes, progress has been done regarding the LGBTQ plus rights, but I think that regarding this, the role of the EU is critical to actually create a framework for this. And even though there is a policy framework created by the EU Commission back in 2015, it was a policy framework rather than a legislative one, just because the EU considers not having the discretionary power that the member states have to regulate such things. So this strategy back in 2015, along with the strategy of 2020 and 2025, the LGBTQ plus equality strategy, it promotes the LGBTQ plus rights, and it highlights also the principles of equality, non-discrimination, which are basic fundamental principles of the EU treaties and also the Charter of the Fundamental Rights. And I think that important is the role of the youth. Again, I don't think that is not important. Also to implement these strategies and further promote it on national level, such as in Cyprus, take initiatives, create events, strategies, campaigns, raise awareness. It's not a one-time thing. It's a continuous progress, a struggle, if I may add. It's not about being Pride Month in June. It's about being an all year round thing. Educate ourselves, our society, to accept each other, to accept that they're different human beings out there, and promote these principles and these values. So yeah, it's something that cannot be done in a night. So yeah, it's a constant struggle, and we should all unite under this purpose, I think.
Thank you so much. So somewhat pessimistic in the sense that we're not there yet, but there is a lot of room to improvement. That's the key takeaway. Yolanda, could we hear your opinion on the next question,
Sure.
which was briefly touched about what is united in diversity? We have mottos, like a lot of institutions have mottos like united in diversity. What do you think that means? And to what extent do you see these values being reflected in the youth or within the context of Europe and in the broader context of your own country?
Again, a very broad context. We can do a PhD on that as well. Of course, we are using these buzzwords most of the time, so we've seen what it means united in diversity, for instance, here in Romania, in relation to youth. When Ukrainian youth came to the country due to the war, and many NGOs really and youth workers were there to help integrate. Many schools received the Ukrainian youth to help them to continue their studies. So this is a great example of united in diversity. But at the same time, we have structural problems where NGOs have to, of course, take the role of the state in addressing issues related, for instance, to national minorities such as Roma. And once again, I would like to, in these particular cases, I would like to applaud the work that the youth workers and NGOs are doing, and many youths that are not included in specific networks or NGOs are doing in actually creating programs. For instance, I discovered recently a program promoting music from the Roma community that was developed with the help of youth themselves that were musicians, or a platform that I discovered recently that has no financing, absolutely, but it's promoting LGBTQ plus values and interviews. So it's basically doing a campaign on raising awareness on the topic. It's called the Platforma Normal, so the normal platform. They are doing something that the state is not doing, or other institutions that are supposed to do this in the country. And these are just examples from Romania. I'm sure at the European level there are many others. So in this respect, I would see two lines: the importance of the European financing through the European projects that actually help bringing awareness to topics related to any national minority in our specific countries, of course, and also the initiatives that are done by through other types of financing, and these are absolutely fundamental for advancing the idea of united in diversity and of raising awareness, because it's very important to become aware of the issues that our societies have, and also to give credit to youth because they are more knowledgeable. And they have many important ideas that need to be brought to light, and they need to be supported to bring this forward.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. And I really like the fact that you touched on the funding. Something that we disagree with Ellie, that is, she's going to offer her opinion, is that as soon as the funding or the project is gone, in which it was the foundation, there is not sufficient sustainability in sense of continuing the same initiatives and the same engagement from youth. Ellie says that I'm wrong. Could you explain to me and to us why is that?
Well, to be honest, I don't know if I'm an optimist on this regard, but yeah, I see the glass half full. I think that even though we're not still there where we want to be, I think that the youth takes initiatives, is very active, and I don't know, it contributes actively. For example, we have Erasmus programs. As have been mentioned before, Erasmus is one of the most important programs in the whole European Union. Also, we have simulations. We have the European Youth Parliament. We have also, on a national level, the House of Young Representatives. So we have mechanisms, tools to actually be able to express our ideas and kind of promote them, suggest to the state and the state agencies what we want to pursue. And also, within all these institutions and simulations, we bring people together. For example, Erasmus, it's the most common example. We have the opportunity to learn about different cultures and history, and also learn another language, because who doesn't in the European Union? I don't know if it's just for the CV, but I think it's for also effective communication. We have, for example, in the European Youth Parliament, you have people to come together, regardless of color or ethnicity or you name it, to come discuss, find solutions on common challenges of the environment, for example. And I think in Cyprus, as an island which welcomes so many people, not only from Europe, but like worldwide, I think we have the not the perfect amount of events, but we do have them. They're still here. Actions, initiatives, Erasmus Days, to include all these people and to make sure that they like it here, and to remind them that we belong under the umbrella of the European Union. Like we are united in diversity. I think this is the European Union.
Thank you so much. And that's great, the fact that you ended with a positive message in the end. Yavor, I know we left you quite a bit.
Oh, it's fine. Something happened to my camera. I don't know what.
But you can still hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I think the next question, it's a very great one, because it's usually left out, and it could be a bit ironic because I'm a bit short on time. So I don't want to just go briefly at it. I want for everyone to be able to speak about it. So the next question would be about people with disabilities. And that's why I'm saying that it's usually left out when we're talking about inclusivity and equality. So could you please speak about what other strategies can be implemented to promote the inclusion and equality of people with disabilities in the EU? And because the project is specifically about young people, what young people can do to contribute in these efforts?
Okay, so in terms of disabilities, we're not that experienced as an organization. But what I can say about, as Ellie, I think, said earlier, and when it comes to young people is, the time is now to, in this case, educate the youth that, disability is a form of diversity. So when you look at it that way, you will want to create some form of educational programs to tell this new generation that this form of diversity exists, and that it's part of life, and it's happening every day, and that they, as young people, would have to accommodate for that type of diversity in in their daily lives, you know, regardless of their own physical health or mental health. So I think, yeah, that's what I could say on this topic.
Thank you so much. It really sets the context. Yolanda.
I will just pick up on what Javor said. I think it's very important to normalize disability, to understand what's behind it, and not think only, because when you say disability, for most of us, we see a physical disability, and most of the time we are speaking about also other type of, I don't know, emotional or other kind of disabilities that are not visible to the eye. So another buzzword that we hear in, for instance, in the European projects, it's training in soft skills. I would like to see that not as a buzzword, but actually as being implemented beyond the projects, because these soft skills are actually making us strong in actually developing skills such as empathy and being able to perceive and understand others in different manners in our and in their diversity as well. So a more inclusive education with more attention towards disability at large, I think would be a step forward. Campaigns for awareness, peer education as well. What I've seen lately in Romania, and I think it was beautifully put by many people that experience autism. They started, and I've seen a project recently, people writing, expressing in different forms of art about their experience with autism. And I think it's beautiful because this is basically peer education, texts written by young people for other young people, normalizing different aspects of living with autism, for instance. So another attention recently was given to, a special attention was given recently also to endometriosis as well, which is not necessarily recognized as a disability all over Europe, and so on and so forth. So I believe we are becoming a bit more aware of the term, and also it expands, which is wonderful. But again, there's lots of work to do at European level and the personal level as well, because picking up on the idea of united in diversity also means working on yourself in order to be able to work in a group and as a group. So yeah, I will leave you with that.
Thank you so much. Ellie, before I give the to you to close this wonderful panel, I would like to encourage everyone who might have a question to put it in the chat so we can visit it very, very briefly. So Ellie, back to you.
Well, I don't have many things to say. They were wonderfully put by my previous co-panelists. Yeah, it's a shame that people with disabilities are often marginalized and that they're ashamed to actually show their disability to the rest of the society. And society criticizes people with disabilities. And I see it as a young person, as a person who goes to a university, well, went to university. So I think that as youth, we can contribute to change, you know. And I think that via volunteering, which is very important, to actually see what other people, how other people behave, and understand, engage in activities with them, in practices, to support them, and also via the simulations that I previously mentioned, via essays to the state agencies, to push, to put pressure onto a better general and further technical support network for these people. For example, to have a better and an effective equipment in universities, in schools, for people with disabilities, and also like create ramps, which is like the easiest thing. So yeah, I think it's tough and left out these people and how they feel and how we understand them. So yeah, we cannot talk about inclusion until we're really there.
Thank you so much. So with that said, should we open the panel to any questions from the audience? I do not see the chat. Maybe it's my fault. But we are on time. So if we have more time in the end, we can hopefully revisit any question to our panelists and they can address it. So thank you so much, all three of you and everyone listening. Fodini, I will give the word to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to continue with the second panel, which is moderated by Fabiana and Jon.
Jon, you are muted, so we cannot hear you.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mute. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be a part of this project. My name is Ioan Danchov, and together with my partner, Fabiana Mitova, we are a part of the youth team Health and Social Development Foundation, HESET. The topic of our panel today is opportunities for the youth in European Union. Our guests today are Elena Madrigal from Inertia Digital, Ivan Fadini from International Napoli Network, and Juliana Vasileva from the European Youth Parliament. They have already prepared presentations to give answers to the questions young people ask. Then after they finish presenting, we will have time for discussion. Now I give the word to my partner Fabiana to lead the performance. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Fabi, more shortly. I want to say thank you to everyone who's here today and listening to us and our voice. Our question is what kind of program exists? Do you know that supports people to pursue a career in EU or in a European country? How can fight them? How do test programs help young people to develop their skills and especially their ability to work in multinational teams or networks? What are the skills that young people should develop to be successful, and what are the upsides and difficulties? How can young people from Europe participate in diverse programs or projects in the benefit from the UA and its identity? Let's start with Elena Madrigal. I'm hoping I say it right. I'm sorry if I don't.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here today. I have prepared a presentation to answer these questions. Let me just share my screen. Maybe here. One moment, please. All right. I don't know why. Okay. Oh. I'm afraid I cannot share my screen because of the permission of the application. So I think maybe I can. Do you have my presentation?
Yes, but you have the right to share screen.
Yes, I know I have the right, but I don't have I didn't allow the app before to share my screen. And in order to do that, I should have to
Okay.
close the app and then enter again. Sorry.
I will share it for you, and then just let me know when. Okay.
All right. First of all, thank you for sharing the screen. I'm sorry about that little issue. Okay. If you go to the next slide, please. Can you go to the second slide, please? There. Thank you. Well, I want to present again myself. I'm Elena Madrigal. I'm a graduate in English Studies in the University of Seville, and I'm currently working in the implementation and coordination of Erasmus Plus project at Inercia Digital, which is a little, let's say, formation center about digital skills and so on. So if you go to slide number 4, because number 3 is like a little, there you go. In the European Union, we find different programs. I wanted to mention 3 of them. The first one is the Erasmus Plus, which I'm sure, well, we have already mentioned this program throughout the conference. And why is this and the other programs important in this topic? Because throughout these different programs, we can have the opportunity to study, to train, and getting work experience in the abroad, let's say that. And this is very useful when we think about, for example, looking for a job, having experience in a, let's say, a certain topic or certain sector or area is very useful and is highly appreciated by people who are looking for employees. Also, you might be familiar with European Solidarity Corps, which is again a similar program, which also offers opportunities to participate in volunteer projects, internships, and jobs to benefit communities and people throughout Europe. How can you find different programs apart from the Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps throughout the European youth portals, which is free to everyone? And I would also like to mention the one that you can see at the right of the screen called Theory of Change. This is a project we are carrying on in Inercia Digital. And with this project, we want to help young migrants into the process of integration in other European countries, let's say, for example, by developing language skills or learning about the culture of the country. Also, if you can go to the next, thank you. I'm going to repeat myself over and over with the topic of developing language skills, but how can these programs can help young people to develop these skills? Well, they offer young migrants and young people to, let's say, to be open to different cultures and a different environment, and in order to get used to this situation, let's say, these programs help them by developing intercultural skills, improving language skills again, and also gaining international professional experience, which, as I have just said in the previous slide, is highly appreciated by the people who are looking for employees. Regarding the same project I mentioned before, we do this by developing the language skills and also intercultural competencies. And through how, let's say, how do we do this? By help young people to develop dialogue and thinking activities in order to learn how to work in teams, resolve conflicts, and communicate effectively in a multicultural context. Regarding, thank you. What skills should they develop to be successful in other countries? The first one, as we have mentioned over and over throughout this presentation, is the language and intercultural communication skills, but also critical thinking and problem solving that we have just mentioned in the previous slide, also teamwork and collaboration, and adaptability and resilience. Because at the end of the day, for example, I'm going to tell you about an experience I have with some friends. These friends went to work abroad, which in Spain is quite common, and they went to work, in this case, to the Netherlands. But they didn't know so much about the culture. They didn't know the language. They were not, let's say, highly supported in those areas. So the experience was more difficult than how the experience should have been with the proper support. With that, I wanted to, let's say, exemplify the different obstacles and difficulties people can find. The first one will be the language barrier, also the discrimination and prejudice, because unfortunately nowadays we also find that. And again, as I has just said, the lack of resources and support, because having that support is way more easy to go through this experience, which is not normally as easy as we want. Theory of change, again, forms people and support people in different situations. Okay. How can young people from Europe participate in these different programs and benefit from that? Again, something that we have been talking about throughout the whole conference, doing a volunteer, doing an internship, also going abroad to study or to job or to have a job, work on that and gain experience, and also try to find and participate in community and innovation projects. For example, getting involved in the EU-funded projects such as Theory of Change. If you go to the next slide, just to give you a little more information about this project, if you are interested in. This project is funded by the Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund, also AMIF, and we want to achieve 4 key objectives. The first one is to strengthen and develop the European asylum system, encompassing both internal and external aspects. Also support legal migration to member states by promoting the integration of third country nationals. Also help counter irregular immigration and ensure the effectiveness of return and readmission processes in third countries. And finally, foster solidarity and responsibility sharing among member states, particularly towards those most impacted by migration and asylum challenge. That was all from my part. If anyone has any question, or we can go to the next topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was amazing, honestly. Your answer very good, honestly. I couldn't miss the first slide of your presentation. It's like so interesting about yourself. Maybe you are the most interesting there. You say you are connected to some projects. Can you say something more about that if you feel okay to share?
Yes, of course. In Inercia Digital, we work in different projects, all of them funded by the European Union, sorry. And most of them are about working with young people. So in this case, for example, we had the theory of change, but in other cases or in other projects, we work on, for example, I remember a project in which we train people, for example, in AI, in order to them to be, let's say, to them to have AI skills, in order to them, when they grow up, to work with AI and being able to develop different projects or develop different skills related to that. Also, for example, I remember all of them at the end of the day are projects in which we try to train young people to find a job, to find a easy way to go through different experiences, for example, through dedication, through, for example, through disabilities, as we have just talked. I remember a project from a partner of my, of Inercia Digital, in which they work with autism. And at the end of the day, we have all our projects related to young people, and in that way, and try to help them to develop different skills and so on.
Thank you so much for your answer. Our next is Ivan Vadini. You can share with us.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me. First of all, I'm sorry, probably I'm going to repeat some of the information Elena already talked about in her presentation. I'm trying to share my screen. Let me see. Okay, can you see it? Hello?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
Right now?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I have the same questions. Elena already replied, so I'm going a bit quickly for the ones where we already talked about the opportunities of European Union. Of course, the most famous is Erasmus Plus program that born more than 30 years ago, with the ambition to create European citizenship through the mobility exchange, in particular about university students. Then they decided also to involve other target groups, such as graduated people, researchers, professionals, young entrepreneurs. And you can find opportunities of different kind for different target groups if you want to spend different periods in Europe. So you can start sometimes also from very short experiences, 30 hours in a week, through 1 year. And the most famous are probably European Solidarity Corps that are allowing young people aged 18, 35 years old to spend a minimum of 2 months up to 12 months on social and environmental projects with mainly NGOs or social enterprises. And you can receive also a support such as accommodation, sometimes also eventually some meals, and a pocket money from the organizations. Then there are programs for the regional cooperation that are inside European Union countries and countries where European Union is having a partnership, so usually the one on the borders, who are involving people aged 18, 30 years old in programs from 2 to 6 months. Then there are the international work camps under the International Civilian Service that are having a younger target group starting from 14 years old and starting from 30 hours of services in a week. but they have also long-term volunteering, starting in this case from a minimum of 18 years old for programs who has a minimum of commitment of 1 month up to 12 months. Going to the second part of the first questions, how you can find them, as said also by Elena, European Union has a wide presence on online with institutional sites like Your Europe, and they have also social media accounts for the most important social medias, without saying in particular one of them. Then if you are, for instance, university students, almost all the European Union universities have abroad opportunities offices that are supporting in particular students in joining Erasmus Plus projects, both the one where you are going to spend some months, minimum a semester in another European university, or in finding internships. And then physically, the most important cities has also EU direct that are kind of desk offices or one-stop shops where all the citizens can find opportunities, information, receive help also in accessing to opportunities or in being informed about programs and the European Union agenda. Going to the second question, also in this case, I will say something that Elena talked about. There are many benefits from having an experience abroad, even if it's short or more longer. In particular, when we think about job environment, in my opinion, the most common benefits are learn how to deal with language barriers and cultural differences. Not all the times, even if English is the most common second language in Europe, you will find people skilled. For instance, here in Naples, for sure, half of the population doesn't speak any English. And in particular, if you are going to work with older colleagues, probably they will struggle. Then there's another benefit that sometimes we don't consider enough, but is one of the, let's say, the most important motivations for people who are spending a period abroad. So connecting to nature, discover a culture, exploring also spaces, and discover new way of life. Then, most important thing in particular, if you are going to spend your time in an NGO, in a small organization, is being flexible and adaptable, and be ready to work in organizations with a lack of resources and structure. Probably in particular, if you are volunteering, it means that if an organization is needing volunteers, there's something that is not working or they don't have enough resources. Other important thing is being humble and ready to learn, developing empathy, and be ready also for failure. So if you are young in particular, it takes time to get experience, learn, develop methodologies, and don't be stressed. You have to deal also with some anxiety and be ready to restart and retry until you're going to be successful. Then, as it happens in life, usually you get from your experience what you put into it. The same is when you volunteer or you're having an intern abroad. So you need to be curious, proactive in particular, and committed, and probably also your colleagues could engage you more, appreciate, and for sure it's really important also that you are going to develop soft skills as teamwork, tolerance, being open-minded, and in particular problem solving. Passing to the third questions, what are the skills that young people should develop? I've added the pick of Edgar Morin, the famous French philosopher and sociologist. Is almost 103 years old, but is still probably one of the most interesting intellectuals in Europe about education. And when we were starting to talk about the impact of innovation, digital technologies, new economy in the job market more than 20 years ago, Edgar Morin was used to encourage young people not to choose specialized education. Edgar Morin was aware about the sudden disruptive changes brought by innovation, but also as one of the most important theorists of complexity, is always stressing the fact that too specialized knowledge cannot help people in finding the deep connections inside complex systems and organizations. So according to his talk, but also to the recent reports, I can highlight that probably the most important skills are critical thinking and develop analytical skills, together with problem solving and self-management. So being able to be independent, but at the same time, you will need also to have a good teamwork, because in any case, you are not a freelance, but you're working inside an organization. And these skills are going to be probably crucial in the next years. Another huge challenge is deal with a huge amount of information. So being able to work, for instance, with big data, if possible also with open data, helping to plan solutions, taking decisions in a complex world and in a world that is requiring different point of view and different knowledges. Then another important thing, and in this case, I've added the pick of the movie Zelig by Woody Allen, where the Zelig was a person who was adapting basically to every setting, every context. This is too much. Young people is encouraged to be adaptable, change, try to follow also the transformations, but we don't have to forget that we have also to deal with changes. So it's important also to cultivate, as say, critical thinking, try to adapt, but having a clear point of view, clear knowledge, and being able also to develop your creativity that is fundamental, in particular when we are thinking to artificial intelligence. Arriving at the last question, let's say, first of all, we've seen also in the last elections that there's no, in my opinion, just one European Union identity. There are, even if we have a mainstream by the American society, there are still some differences in Europe, and in particular differences between the different generations. Europe is a very old continent, is the oldest one, and Italy in particular is the second oldest country in the world. So we have different point of views, but there are also many
It seems there's a problem because we lost Ivan. Can you hear us? Probably there's a connection problem. You can write us in the chat if you can listen to us, because we cannot see you or listen to you.
Yes, we can. We can hear you well.
Ivan, if he can hear us, because his presentation stopped and we cannot see him. So Johan, Fabiana, how do you want to continue?
Thank you to Ivan. Expect not the problem. Everything was very clear and very good speaking about our question. I can not talk more because it didn't end. So I'm gonna give the word to our next, Juliana Vasileva. If you're ready, you can start.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I will try to present.
We can see Ivan again on our screen.
Yes, sorry, I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Does he want to finish his presentation or like?
No, I don't know at what point I was cutted.
I think you had just started talking about the fourth question.
It was, he was at the end of his presentation. I think for the best he should finish. I think he has a little left, and then Juliana can start presenting hers. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe this time I'm trying not to share the screen because I don't know, maybe there was some issues with it and it crashed. Basically, just to finish, it's important to be aware about the differences among the different countries, differences among the big centers and rural areas, for instance. It's important also that you are going prepared when it comes to travel, not just thinking I'm going abroad is a kind of holiday, because if you want to see things you've never seen, the best way is to go in a place you never visited, but at the same time you need to go to confirm what you already know about that place, and you learn with formal education, you learn on medias, etc. Thanks again for your time, and apologize for the technical problem.
It's okay. Thank you so much. You were amazing. Thank you so much. Juliana Vasileva, you can continue. I'm sorry if I don't say your name right.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So, yeah, I will try to share the presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, I can see it.
Okay, so I am Juliana and I am younger than most of the people here, as you can probably notice. And we've heard a lot about the youth and the options and the opportunities they have. And as part of the youth, I'm going to talk about the European Youth Parliament. And that is a network that I'm actively involved in at the moment. And we already heard a bit about it. So now I'll explain more about what it is and how people can get involved in it. So I'm going to go over what is the European Youth Parliament, how can you get involved, what roles can you have within the network, and skills in the network that are required or that you can acquire over time. So in order to answer the question, what is the European Youth Parliament, I decided that the first thing that I'm going to do is go to the website of the network and copy and paste their description of it. So now I'll read it. The European Youth Parliament is one of Europe's largest youth platforms for civic education, intercultural encounters, and the exchange of ideas, run by young people for young people. Our mission is to inspire and empower a young generation of informed, open-minded, responsible, and active citizens that shape society and drive impact. So that is the aim of the network. And what exactly do we do in that network? Basically, there are numerous sessions across European countries that are organized. There is at least one session in every country that is a member of the European Youth Parliament every year, and also young people can go on sessions in other countries. I think last I checked, there were around a total of 1,500 sessions organized within the network. So there, as I said, are a lot of sessions happening almost every week that take place. So what do people do in this place? Basically, there are different committees that prepare on their topic. Beforehand, they have a topic overview, and when the delegates, which I'm going to talk about later, arrive, they talk with each other, they make conclusions, they come up with ideas in order to write a resolution and later on defend it in a General Assembly. All of that is based on the way the European Parliament works, the way the committees in the European Parliament works. So how can you get involved in this network? I would say that the easiest way to do so is to find the social media of the national committee you're a part of. For example, if you're from Bulgaria, then UIP Bulgaria will be the national committee you will be part of. The same with Greece. If you're from Greece, the national committee is going to be UIP Greece. And the way people get started in the network is they apply to be delegates, and from there on, they can take on different roles within the network that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. So when you find the social media of the national committee, they're going to post announcements about calls for delegates, where you can sign up in order to become one and then experience that and continue growing within the network. If the country you're based in doesn't have a national committee, which can be the case, I think there are only a few countries that don't have a national committee, then you can start as a delegate in a country that has a national committee. You can just apply to a session in that country and start from there. So what roles can you actually have within the network? And here I'm going to talk a bit more about my experience within the network and the roles that I've held. So the first one, the starting point for everybody, is being a delegate. A delegate is a person, student most of the time, who signs up and who is what the session is made for. So basically, the delegates are the people who are gathered together in committees led by their chairpersons, and they make the resolution, they come up with ideas, they communicate with each other, they make friends with each other, because most of the time those are people that you have not met beforehand. And once you've been a delegate, you can start applying for different roles within your home country, but also in other countries that have national committees. And also you can be delegate more than once. I would say that it's preferable for people to experience being a delegate and coming up with a resolution and ideas more than once in order to really understand what UIP is all about. And then there is the academic team, which is composed of chairpersons who lead the committees, vice presidents who help chairpersons who have more experience than chairpersons, and they help them write their topic overviews, they help them navigate their committee, and they give them advice because they have already went through that. And then there is the president who oversees the whole session and who oversees the whole academic output and gives ideas and guidance to the vice presidents and the chairpersons. Personally, I've been a chairperson, and that was something that gave me a lot. It made me realize how important bonding with different people is, how important the way you lead a team is. And in a bit, I'm going to talk about the skills that people need or that people will acquire, because within the network I have acquired a lot of skills that I'm sure that will be useful for the rest of my life. And then there is the organizing team, the team that is responsible for the whole session to take place. It's led by the head organizers. Then there are the core organizers who join very early on and who work alongside the head organizers. And then there are the organizers who join a bit later and who help the whole session to run smoothly. I have been an organizer 3 times, and in the next cycle, I will be a head organizer of a session. And that is something that I'm sure will teach me a lot, that will challenge me. But I believe that while I'm still young and while I still have time to learn, that is one of the best things that I can do. And then there is the media team that is responsible for the media output of the session, everything that other people will see and maybe get inspired to get involved in. There are the media team members who take pictures and make videos and make projects. And then there are editorial assistants who guide those media team members. And then there are editors who guide the whole team together. And of course, because it's the sessions are always composed of many people, as you can probably guess, they're the event safe people or person who make sure that everybody who needs support or everybody who needs to talk with somebody can do so. So as you can see, there are a lot of roles. There is something for everybody, I think, because if you're not into the academic part of things, you can be part of organizing or media and vice versa. And then what skills do you need and what skills will you develop within the network? As we've already heard in the previous presentations, especially in the one based for Erasmus, soft skills are something that are needed and also developed. And you can probably guess, based on the different roles a person can hold in a session, that different skills will be needed and different skills will be required. For example, if you're part of the media team, then maybe creativity is more important than active listening. If you are chairperson, then leadership is something very important in order to be able to guide your committee into having a successful time and successful resolution produced at the end of the committee work. And then as delegate, I think that is one of the most important roles you can have in a session, because you will learn all of those things that I've listed, because you will have to actively listen to other people, your committee members. You also maybe have to take the leadership if you're working in smaller groups and you have something that you want to say. Responsibility is also an important skill. So all of those skills are needed and acquired in different roles, but as a delegate, I think they will all come at one point during the session. Now, that was all that I have prepared. Thank you for the attention, and I would like to encourage people here who want to try out the network to try it out, to sign up as delegates and see what happens. And now, if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
I actually have a question. I am involved. I'm involved with rhetoric events and competitive debating. Are there any programs relevant to it?
Are there any programs relevant to competitive debating?
Yes.
Well, the whole point of a committee is to produce a resolution and then defend it during General Assembly, which includes a lot of debating and a lot of speaking with other people and defending your point. So I would say that there are a lot of points that interfere with debating and the European Youth Parliament.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
I think Elena has raised her hand.
Yes, I only have a question because I find myself very interested on this. For example, I am 21 years old, so could I try to participate in this in some way, or should I be, for example, under 18 in order to be part of this youth parliament?
So it really depends on the national committee in the country, because there are different laws regarding child protection. So different countries allow different things. But I think most of the national committees will allow any youth, which is maybe until 25, 30, to start in the network and then grow within it. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you for the wonderful presentation you made. I found it very interesting, and I'm sure everyone also find it this way.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see anyone raising their hand. Okay. So thank you everyone for the attention. Big thanks to the panelists for preparing so well and answering our questions. That was our panel. It was amazing meeting you and having to know each one of you. Thank you again for the attention.
Thank you all. We have reached our final panel. And Chrysostome, this is your turn to introduce us to your guests. And we hear the questions and the answers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chrysostomos. I'm from Cyprus. I represent Citizens in Power organization. Our panel discussion will be about the future of refugees in the EU. Our three panelists for this panel discussion will be Linda Awenis, the co-founder of Refugee Women in Bulgaria, Lefteris Papagiannakis, director of the Greek Council for Refugees, and Susan Fadayer, lecturer at the University L'Oriental of Naples. So, as I have told you before, our central thematic will be the future of refugees in the European Union, a key area that was at the center of public debate before the EU elections, and as we have seen from the results, it will remain the first priority. Just to mention why, the two EU parties, that have an anti-refugee agenda, conservative and reformist, and identity and democracy, have increased their seats in the EU Parliament by more than 13 seats, making them 150 out of 720, a percentage that is quite worrying, as they will have the chance to influence policy and make larger coalitions, such as the European People's Party, which is the largest coalition of parties in the EU, EPP, even consider working with them. That is something that have been rumored the past few days. That brings us to the first question, which is, how is this political reality concretely reflect in the lives of refugees received in Europe? Linda, the floor is yours to answer the first question.
Okay. Good evening to everybody. First, I want to thank you for invitation. Did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm very pleased to be with you here. Really increasing the nationalist parties in Europe. It's worrying for us as a refugee, because it's reflect, as you said, the percent is higher, and for sure it will reflect for the future of the refugees in Europe. One of the things that are will reflect is the stricter immigration policies to make the procedures harder, so the people, they cannot receive refugee status and cannot stay in Europe, which their lives it makes in risk, in danger. Also, it will reflect on the reduced social beneficiaries benefits from the countries, while they will try to do their steps of integration or procedure of integration in the country, which is very hard. Also, it will increase the hate speech, or I can say public sentiment, and it's things reflected one, like it's like a chain. When we have hate speech within the society, and this reflects on the people, all the people will become against refugees, and this will reduce their possibility for finding a job, finding housing, and the medical, in all services that they are really in need. Also, the legal documentation, it will be increased. The problem will increase of family reunification, maybe will reduce, maybe they will try to stop family to gather together. And all these things, they will bring to psychological and emotional impact on refugees, because they don't know what to do, how to do. They can stay, they can continue their life, as we have in Arab countries a word, the sea is in front of you and the enemy is behind you, so they don't know what to do. And all this will really reflect on the families, on the children. Also, maybe will reflect on the refugee community organization, refugee-led organization, like our organization. We are established in before 21 years, and we are working regarding the funding and control and investigation to see how we are working, from where we got money. So all these things, they will reflect on the future of the refugees. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Linda. That was a really interesting facts that you gave us of how refugees will be directly affected by this rise of far-right vote. With the same question, we proceed to Lefteris Papagiannakis, the director of the Greek Council for Refugees, to show us his views on the matter. Lefteris, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's very exciting to try and answer some of the very challenging questions that you've sent us before. And I think that the results, the consequences of the rise of the far right, we'll see them already. We didn't have to wait for the result of the European election. The European Pact that was adopted a few weeks ago is a direct consequence of the pressure that the member states of the European Union felt because of the extremely toxic narrative around migration. It is a very hostile pact towards people in search of protection. It is a pact that is based on outer border protection without any mentioning of, for example, integration and social integration, meaning life after accessing asylum. I would point out also another very dangerous point that it's indirectly or directly connected with the results of the European election. The rise of the far right in national elections. For example, we can see that in France, for example, in the previous European elections, we had the extreme right party of Marine Le Pen and the party of the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, in roughly the same level, for 24%, around there. And in the latest election, a few days ago, Marine Le Pen got 31%, and the party of the president got 15%, so double the score. And this is very worrying. It was not translated in an increase of the far-right European party, where Marine Le Pen participates significantly, but it led France into national elections with the fear of having, for the first time, a prime minister that will belong to the far right. The same goes for Germany, where the AfD doubled its score, and it put pressure on the coalition ruling parties in Germany. And we have seen it around Europe, because migration for the last 10 years at least is at the center of all national debates, national political debates, and and a central argument in every national election, in Greece, in Cyprus, etc., etc. So I think that we have to link the rise of far-right parties nationally with the rise at the European level. It's, of course, directly connected, but we haven't seen the worst of it, I'm afraid. And already, at least in Greece, the narrative of the parties, especially the far-right parties that have elected members in the European Parliament, is linking the agenda of the next day to the woke culture, illegal migration, human rights protection, etc., etc. All these issues that have been mentioned today are part of the same agenda, in which the far right will fight. We are going to see worse than that, I'm afraid. If you take into account, for example, the discussion around the demographic crisis that the EU is facing, I fear that we will see the debate, the discussion around reproductive rights of women coming back in a very negative way. So all of these things will be linked in a unique agenda that is characterizing the far-right approach, and it will get worse before it gets better, I'm afraid.
Great. Thank you so much for your input, Lefteris. That was great to hear from you, especially the part on the national elections and AfD and Le Pen. Of course, in Cyprus, far-right vote increased last Sunday, even in local level, which the party here elected local representatives for the first time in many cities and villages. That leads us to the third panelist for the first question, which is Susan Fadayer. Susan, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, and you hear me, I think. I want to thank everybody, and thanks the organizer of this project. It's very interesting. I don't prepare any paper. They telling me before to speak about myself. I am a Palestinian. I am here in Italy from 30 years. I come to Italy 38 years ago, like a student, but I am born in Palestine. I live under occupation all of my life because of that I hate the war, because I know what's meaning the war for everybody. It's not a good thing, not for Europe and for everybody. And now we see Gaza, the situation is so bad. My mother is Italian. My father is a Palestinian, but my mother is immigrated into Brazil, and either after the Second War, and my father immigrated after 48 to Brazil. Because of that, I live in a family who know what is meaning is be immigrated. My English is so bad because of that. I don't know if I speak well or not.
Don't worry about it. Nobody of us is a native English speaker, so speak freely.
Thank you. I speak now Italian, my English is bad. Comunque, I come to Italy. My father decided to give me a chance in the life. He asked me to go to Italy to study at the university. I finished economic in commerce international, and after that, director of archive. And for several years, for a lot of years, I do volunteer in the hospital, because in 35 years ago in Italy, the immigration come to Italy, but in the hospital, they don't have mediator, intercultural mediator, can put the hospital with the immigration. And I do this for several years. And after that, then the same time, I decide to take the place of learning to teach English, to teach Arabic in the university. I work in a lot of university in Italy, Florence, Bari, and now in the Oriental University of Naples. I know. I now read children's rights here. Children's rights. About what children now speak? About what children? Because I think we speak about the children in Europe, development country. If we want to speak about the people like Gaza or in Palestine, I don't live on my life. I don't see the right, because I don't, the people in Palestine now don't believe that they are the right. They want to live like everybody, but from, I don't know, everybody have the right, but the Palestinian children, no. The Palestinian children now, everybody, every city, every nation must oblige Israel to respect the law. If Israel don't respect the law, I think that nobody in Palestine can speak that there is a law. There is a law. Conferma la tua lingua parlata. It's for me.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah.
No, I'm not finished, but I have something. Okay. I want to tell us I was candidate in European Parliament this election, and I have a lot of vote, but I become in my party in the number 7. 6 go to the parliament. I am the number 7. I have a lot of vote. I want to go to parliament, I think, before to go to parliament, because our voice, the voice of the African people, or immigration, or refugees, or Palestinian people, the voice of babies must go to Europe, because Europe now, it's not the country of peace. It's the country of the month of war. That we can see, everybody can see this. That our government is fascist. We know that. Meloni is fascist. And she become more strong now. And she built in Albania 2 lagers for immigration, for immigrated people, because they want to do the border in Europe. And it's very dangerous, not only for Europe, but for the immigration. I have the student who come from Africa, from Somalia, and from Chad. I think that the people from Africa, they must have a chance. They must have a chance. They can't come to the desert and from the desert to the sea and died there. They must come in Europe, and they must have the chance, because every they explore, and every mineral thinks it's in the hand of international organization, not in their hand. And we in Europe take everything from the African people. They suffer a lot. We don't have a political structural in Europe that protects our immigration and our refugees. They stay in Europe country for several years without decide if they must be refugees or not. In Italy, we have the law Bossi-Fini, and it's very dangerous because this law don't look to the person, like a machine. He must work without right. And this is very dangerous. And now with Meloni and with this wing in Europe, it's become more dangerous. Thank you. If you want to answer, I can answer you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you raised many different aspects of immigration and how is it affected by the international law and by the war that is ongoing now in Gaza, which we are all very devastated by the scenes that we see there. And of course, I think most of the people want a ceasefire there. It's really interesting that you raised those points, because that's a different aspect from the more like technocrat aspect that the 2 other panelists have explained. And now we'll be moving to the next question. We'll keep the queue as before. Linda will go first, then Lefteris, and then Suzanne will answer the next question, which is the phenomenon of migration is likely to continue over the years due to factors such as climate change, conflicts, war, poverty, social inequalities, and many more. How will Europe's approach to migrants evolve over the years, do you think, taking into account the different countries of origin of all the people that are coming to Europe? Linda, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I think it's better to involve the refugees in taking decisions, and also to work with them for the empowerment. Each year, it's different, the level of refugees that are arriving Europe. Before 10, 20 years, the refugees, they arrived, they were educated because it was the beginning of the conflicts in their countries. There was education, they were professionals, and for so long years, conflict, and many of these people, they have no profession or no education, especially I speak on behalf of women coming from there. From Syrian conflict, many children, they are arriving without education. So the Europe, what we have to do is to encourage these people, to give them a hand, to make them to be able to rely on themselves, and to grow up in different society, and they will learn more, as you say, the European values. They can learn these things and each country, each person have their own values. So we can join complete both of them together for the better. So if we work on education and giving good skills for work for these people, and it will be the best way for their integration, as really these people, they are very suffered, especially increasing the number of minors and unaccompanied children, and where we are losing them. They are leaving from one country to another country. So really it needs a lot of work. And I can say not only papers and documents and laws, but really in practice to do these things in order to make the life easier for refugees and for the society.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for your input on that. Lefteris, can you elaborate?
I think that I can use an example in order to see how this reality is very complicated and shifts and creates different reactions. Remember in 2015, we spoke about the crisis. Roughly 1 million people crossed through the borders of Europe, especially Greece, and moved on mainly to Germany. And this was described as a crisis. In 2022, in February 2022, 8 million Ukrainians crossed the borders, and it was deemed something completely natural. Many people spoke about real refugees. The Ukrainians received an automatic temporary protection implemented for the first time by the EU. This double approach, this double standard approach, was apparently no surprise for anyone, and it was considered to be normal. I'm not saying that it was the wrong thing to do. It was the correct thing to do. But we can discuss, or we can debate, or we can think a bit on why 2015 was presented as a crisis and 2022 was presented as something completely normal. There are a lot of elements that we can take into account. I would propose to discuss racism, institutional racism, social racism, etc. Yes, Ukrainians are more like us. They're white, they're Christians, etc., etc. So it makes things easier. We are culturally not so different. So there are a number of points to discuss. But if you compare these two realities, and on top of that, in 2023, when in Lampedusa we had, I think, roughly 20,000 people, we started discussing about a new European refugee crisis, and we compared this 2023 reality not to 2022, but to 2015, again, jumping over the Ukrainian crisis, which was an actual crisis because there were 8 million people that moved in 8 months. So I would use this example just to provoke a bit of a discussion and a thought process in order to understand why such complex issues are treated differently. It is understandable. I'm not saying it's a linear approach and it's easy to sort through all the arguments, but it puts a point on the discussion, and I think it will provoke a thought process that could lead to interesting remarks. So I can use this example and stop here, but I think that the way that we are debating on migration hides behind it. We hid a lot of issues that we are not willing to discuss. Migration is a very difficult political discussion. And when I talk about politics, I'm not talking about partisan politics, belonging to a political party or having an ideology. I'm talking about policy, politics, management, however you want to call it. How the process of discussing the reality that is not going to stop. Migration is human history. So if someone thinks that migration is a problem, then it means that human history is a problem, maybe, because we are here today because people migrate and still migrate. And they will migrate even more if you take into account the climate reality that we are facing. For the first time in Greece, we have internally displaced people because of a natural disaster. Last year, Thessaly flooded and hundreds of people moved out of their homes who are still underwater. Many of them moved out of Greece permanently. So we have people who not only were internally displaced, but also became migrants going to another country because of climate. We have states, small island states that are going underwater. These people will become probably refugees. Do we discuss climate refugees? Do we climate-induced migration? So it's a very complex issue, but we have to start discussing it because or else we are going to be overwhelmed by reality. And I stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. To be honest, I didn't knew that people from Thessaly migrated, and that's a really interesting fact to know. And we're moving now to answering the question to Suzanne.
I am telling you before that Europe policy must be structural regarding the immigration issue, not building a border. They must take the decision about immigration because
we cannot see you, but we can hear you. Now we can see you. Yeah, move on.
Excuse me. Because as I telling you before that the policy, the European policy of immigration must be structural because we need the immigration, and the European country become older, and they need the young people. The young people come from the immigration. The new immigration either, not only from the immigration and from the refugees. Because of that, we must don't build a border, and we must open with system according with every states in Europe. Not like today, Italy decide this, and tomorrow France decide this. No, we must work together for give chance to these people, because nobody leave his country because he like or he live rich in his country. He obliged to leave his country because just war, because he have disaster, natural disaster, climatic disaster. They leave their country, not because they live well. Several years ago at Napoli, we have something like a consultation of immigrants consultation. And we have Italian association with the community of immigrants. They work together. The situation was good. Now, from 12 years until now, we don't have this, and the situation be very bad. In Italy, the situation is very bad because the law is very bad here. Bossifini, we must leave this law because they don't the dignity of the person. We don't have the dignity. They don't give a person the dignity.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, that's great input there, especially about older people that are not able to work. As far as I'm concerned, Italy is the oldest country in Europe. And to speak about Cyprus, about my country, we have a huge employability problem in the hospitality sector, in the sector of constructions. So, of course, we need migrants to work on those sectors because local population cannot cover all the jobs, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And of course, I agree with you that more centralized actions will need to be in place by the EU. That's all for this question. We're moving on the third one. From your experience, what do you envision as the way or the principal pillars to really value and embrace the voice and participation of refugees? Can you give us a practical example? Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, as a practice, I can say our organization, before 21 years, we were a group of refugee women. I am myself from Iraq, and 9 refugee women from Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. So we decided to be to help each other, to help the newly arrivals, because we went a very big procedure of our integration by ourselves. There was very small and limited support from NGOs in Bulgaria. So we thought to give a hand. And believe me, the results till now, in 21 years, we are continuing to work on the process of integration of the refugees in Bulgaria. We thousands and thousands refugees we are supported till now, and we are continuing. They really rely on us on anything they need. Counseling, accompanying, the barrier language is a very big. So if we help these people, and they will help themselves too, because really we have to empower them, to give them the ability, as I said before, to rely on themselves. This is very good practice, and now we are organizing a new group of refugees since last year, 2 years, as a conflict, the war in Ukraine, and now we have a new group that include Ukraine people to support each other within the country, to work with the municipalities, and I think this is the better way to rely on the leaders of the community, of refugee community.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah,
thank you.
That's a nice input. Lefteris?
I cannot add many things after what Linda mentioned. Of course, empowerment and participation. I mean, giving opportunities to refugees to participate in the political life, apart from social life through social integration, but encourage them to participate in the political life, meaning access to nationality and voting rights. I think this is a no-brainer. I would use the example of Scotland, where when you arrive as a recognized refugee, even the next day, you can vote for your mayor in the local elections.
At least.
I mean, it allows you, or it obliges you, to immediately enter into the participation mode and say, because they say to you, you live here, you have to participate. It is your obligation and your right, but you have to be pushed also to participate. We feel so comfortable, I mean, people who have the right to vote, that we do not vote anymore. For example, look at the abstention rate in the European elections. You have countries where the abstention rate reached almost 80%, just to take the example of Croatia. So people who do not have these rights and request them and demand them, and it is the right to request it, feel that they're left out and with no opportunities to participate in the political debate and evolution of things. So for me, social integration and political participation with empowerment, of course, as Linda described, it is something that needs to be in place. We broadly describe this reality as integration policies. We can use a number of expressions, inclusion approach, etc. That's a theoretical discussion. We have to have in place the policies in order to allow refugees to participate and live and invest, because it is also an investment procedure. You cannot expect people to stay in your country and evolve, and develop when you don't offer them the opportunity. The example of Greece is very telling. People are leaving Greece in great numbers because they don't get opportunities here to stay. And then we complain about the lack of hands in the agricultural sector, in the tourism sector. Who will stay here? Even Greeks leave because they don't have opportunities. Imagine even more refugees or migrants. We have a big number of migrants who are living with refugees, and I'm talking about migrants who are well integrated, because their opportunities are not satisfying anymore. So I think that having open societies that allow people to stay, give them opportunities, of course, in the context of laws, etc. I'm not talking about something wild and without any type of procedure, in an organized way. As we say in the international debate in an orderly way. Let's use this word in order to make it simple. I think that this is the most important thing, because or else people will continue to move, and then we will discuss about secondary movement. How do you stop people from moving from the country that they enter? Things that are not relevant to their lives, and of course, our lives in general. So the examples that we can use from around Europe and also around the world, are many, but we need to have, at least in the Union, and since we are talking about the European context, a concise policy. Again, the pact is a very telling example. You have a common border policy, but you don't have a common integration policy. So you manage your borders communally all together, and you decide on the same things. But when people enter the EU, you say, now Italy will do one thing, Greece will do another thing or nothing, and then Croatia will do a different thing, and then France will do a different thing. We don't have the best examples around Europe. You have successes and failures, but we can learn from each other. So knowledge exchange, cooperation, etc. Things that they work, and we have for the number of years now, we have good practices, documents that describe good practices, etc. So we have the tools to do it.
Thank you, Lefteris. That was great. Susan?
I think they're telling us everything. The last one that I hope that we have Europe inclusion everybody. No, I don't know if it's the term it's correct. Inclusion Europe, not divided people. More Europe must be human. Now she forget this. Not be human. Far away from the human. I hope that return back to be human Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that there's one hand raised and one question in the Q&A sector. So I'll begin with the question that was written in the chat. And it's exactly the thing that we've discussed about the hard jobs, like in the agricultural sector. How do we give more opportunities to refugees? I mean, to get educated and be more high skilled. I think we've answered most of things, but if any one of the panelists want to elaborate more, and then I will give the floor to the person who raised their hand.
I can give a small part, to try and answer a bit the question. The lack of a unified plan and a unified approach drives countries to make, for example, bilateral agreements with countries to import, if I can use this word, workers. Greece does it a lot with Egypt, Bangladesh, etc. And many countries are doing this type of bilateral agreement. This is not a migration policy approach. This is a labor approach, meaning you import workers, they work, and then they leave. What politicians of researchers and experts on migration speak about circular migration. So you come, you work, and you leave. But that doesn't allow people to invest, as I described, bring their family, invest time, sentiments, and money to stay here. They just come, work, and leave. For me, but this is a personal remark, that's not migration policy. That's labor solutions, if you want. And in many cases, these labor solutions fail, because if you consider that it's the need for hands and labor force around Europe is increasing, it means that you are in a sort of competition. So the winner is the one that offers more possibilities and more opportunities. I can tell you that, for example, Greece is not giving enough opportunities, and other countries are diminishing the time where you can access nationality. So Germany is bringing down the limit from 8 to 5 years, and if you speak good German, you can become a German citizen in 3 years. On the other hand, Greece has increased the time from being a refugee to become a citizen from 3 to 7 years, which is a hostile approach. So a lot of examples show that these type of policies are not effective unless you consider migration only to be a labor tool, meaning bringing people to work and then sending them back or telling them to leave. So it's a question of political will and approach, if I can describe it very quickly.
Yeah, I think previously you used a keyword that needs to be considered, which is investment. Invest in those people. Yeah. Sophia, I will allow you to ask your question now. Just keep in mind that we have only 3 minutes for our panel. And I think now, Sophia, you are able to ask your question.
Hello to everyone. I'm a refugee education coordinator from the Ministry of Education of Greece. I'm in the refugee thing from 2014. In a camp, 8 years. I would like to emphasize the need of substantial support of public refugee education. Even if it's for minors or for adults, because these people, because the school, the public school, and I'm very, I strongly for the public education, because all these years, a lot of money flow over our head and nothing goes to a public school, to schools who help children to integrate, to get integration skills, to meet other children, to go to a school trip, to live like a child. And this is very important for me. And now it's more important in times when there is a very strong limitation and militarization of the camps. They speak a lot of unaccompanied children in Greece, exactly like the Ukraine refugee. There are thousands or hundreds, I don't know the number exactly, there are children in the camp. The only thing they can do outside from a camp is a public school. They sleep in rooms with cockroaches. There is no child protection. 1.5 years in the camps. No child protection agency. I cannot speak, and I'm very angry. Sorry. This is not a question. There is a need that the whole thing goes around. We have to speak for real integration, for real support, for real help. That is my opinion. Thank you very, very much.
I agree with Sophia. I agree with Sophia, because the refugees don't have the right here in Europe. For example, we have refugees from Gaza. They come here to do for care, go to the hospital without husband, woman with the children. And when they come here, they put them without protection. And this is very dangerous for them and for the society. I agree with Sophia. They don't protect.
I want you to come in the camps without to say that before. You have to get an allowance to get in, but it's very important to visit the camps. Come and see for yourself.
Yeah.
I will try.
Thank you, Sophia, for raising these points, which is, the scenes that we do not see in mainstream media. And it's really important for us to have people who are witnessing this, and in order to provide a holistic approach. And thank you for raising all of that. Does anybody else want to, either from the panelists or the attendees, wants to make their comments or questions? So I guess no. Well, that's a wrap up for.
Just a minute, sorry, just a very quick point, very quickly. What was described in the choice of camps instead of integration into the urban environment is part of what we call the deterrence policy approach of the EU, meaning not give opportunities to people and to send the message that they're not welcomed. It's part of the general policy. So the choice of the governments to increase the camps and avoid having people in cities is part of that. And because the camps are far away, without the possibility of commute, transport, etc., it leaves many children outside of the school, for example, or many parents in the inability and impedes the capacity to access the labor market or to have what we may call, and this is just to make it very short, normal life, whatever that means for everyone. So it is part of a general policy that sends the message, don't come here, things are going to be difficult. Pushbacks are part of it also, etc., etc. So you have a number of practices that create a complete policy. Unfortunately, this policy is very hostile.
Yeah, thank you, Lefteris, for this closing remark. Really interesting. So now that's a wrap up for our panel. I'll give the floor back to Angeliki to do the closing remarks of our conference. Would like to thank you all for attending, the panelists, the attendees. Thank you so much. Angeliki.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angeliki Dimoulia. I'm the Research and Communications Officer for NCR. And I've taken some notes to do the closing remarks. I just want to say that each panel was so insightful. And there were great conversations had throughout this 3-hour conference. And I think we've all gained some deeper perspective on issues of equality, youth, and refugees. I actively listen to all of you so I can take these notes and kind of present the most important points and things that were said throughout the conference. So I think the first panel, it was extremely insightful because they presented some pervasive gender stereotypes and how they can be harmful to every member of society, people who identify as women, men, non-binary persons, and I really liked this phrase by one of our panelists, Yavor Konov, that said that using a gender-limited mindset will allow for more rights to be withheld from people, and gender inequality will be more pervasive in society. And beyond this discussion of gender, I think it was really important, this talk about policy and better implementation of policy that wants to reinforce gender equality, but it falls short on implementation. And this means that with weak implementation, then these gender stereotypes are they keep being pervasive in society. And so equality with a comprehensive policy framework to protect its citizens. And then it was really interesting to hear the conversation about what does united in diversity mean. And this is where our panelists talk about the work that NGOs do with this and youth workers. And Yolanda Vasile also spoke about financing, which I also agree with Andres is extremely important. And it's important for youth workers and NGOs, like the cohort of this conference, to continue to do some fundamental work in advancing gender equality. And then another great point was soft skills training in terms of gender, because then when you acquire these soft skills, then you learn empathy and you can identify with others more and be a better person to others and defend their rights. And then the second panel as well, it was really insightful to see what different opportunities exist for youth and the different schemes that exist in order to provide really widespread opportunities for youth to develop their careers and really go forward with their lives. I think the greatest point that was reached here is the connectivity and crossing language barriers, and something that programs like Erasmus Plus has really contributed to. Youth from all countries of Europe can go on exchange programs and meet people with different cultures, experiences, languages, and really share into this notion of what the EU is all about. And again, this conversation was really interesting because there was a lot of conversation about skills, soft and hard skills. And I think it was really important to see how the lived experience of Juliana, which is a youth leader, was portrayed, and how she actively participates in society through opportunities presented in the EU. So this is something that is very important. And these programs, I think, and what was portrayed by the panel, are that they build resilience and then help people and the youth of Europe to be more adaptable to changes. And changes like the third panel discussed, such as the rise of the far right in Europe. I think there's a credible worry there, and all of our panelists kind of signal to that, and what that would mean for the future of refugees in the EU. And I think I agree also with Mr. Papagiannakis that there is a toxic narrative around migration in Europe. And I think something that was also agreed upon by all panelists is that while there is a common border a policy, there isn't a common integration policy, which I thought was such a great way to put issues that arise after with because of the lack of this common integration policy. Education, social integration is key, but then issues such as structural racism and inequality come into play and in political conversations, and do not allow countries in the EU to actually invest in these kinds of interventions. And I think what I keep from this panel as well is a call to EU to respect fundamental human rights. It has an obligation to do so through its treaties. So I think it's very important to protect the rights of refugees, create safe passage for them to Europe, have integration programs, and then create a narrative that's not toxic. And then, yes, uphold fundamental human rights. I think someone has raised their hand. Fardun, I think. if you want to make any, because I'm finished with remarks, so you can take over.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your inputs, wisdom, and for your work that you do. I just want to say thank you for each and every one of you that you do this as a European citizens and from different age and places and locations. It's very important. I just want to thank you and so for what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. I think this was so enriching and interesting for all of us. And I think, Fotini, do you want to take over?
Sure. Thank you, Gilki. Also, thank you all for your insights to these three topics that concern the young people in the EU. The elections are over, and we as youth would like to ask all the members of the European Parliament and the members of the EU institutions to take into consideration our concerns, needs, and promote our participation in the policy making. Thank you all again, and have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the panelists.
Thank you. Good
Yes.
evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The attendees.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.